Hi everyone, my name is Adogs, and thank you all for coming to my channel. So today we have the champion for BCS Melbourne, Alex Chapkin. Alex, what did you play for BCS Melbourne?
So for the event, I was playing against a dragon. Um,
Oh,
yeah.
it's nice, nice.
Uh, like everyone else, I was obviously thinking about playing sword. Sword being the best deck in this meta for its consistency value, and Leonidas giving everything +3/+3 in a deck full of storm-based cards is a bit insane. However, I realized that the mirror was essentially just a coin flip. So I preferred to play a deck that forsook some consistency and instead gave a much higher ceiling in order to combat the inevitability that sword brings. It also has a very inherently positive matchup against Haven, which I believed to be the possibly the third favorite deck between Sword, Dragon, and Haven itself.
Very nice. Well, whenever you're ready, feel free to show us what you're running.
Yep. So leader's just the generic Rowan from the structure deck because the dragon leaders all look boring. Um, yeah. So obviously playing three bell ringers. Dragon's mana curve is very heavy towards the middle between the 4 and 5 mana costing range. So there's not really many one drops that Dragon can play. Bell ringer obviously just helps slow down sword, but the main reason really is for the Abyss matchup. I didn't see any Abyss luckily, but this is the one card that you are hard mulliganing for in the Abyss matchup. Against Sword, it's nice, but it's not really necessary. Typically, you go through it as quickly as you can just to cycle. Next, we're playing on 3 Blazing Breaths. This is arguably the best reason to be playing Dragon. A 1-drop that does 4 damage when you're in Overflow, or even 2 damage as a quick. It's really good against the early openings that all the other decks can do, except during the mirror. Against Sword, if you're going second and they play a Maid Leader going 1, you just pop the Maid Leader. Haven, if they're playing Prison Priestess and they drop that turn 1, you just Blazing Breath it away. And Abyss against Ambling Wraith with Skeleton Fighter or any of their many 1-drops, Blazing Breath just outs it. The 4 damage at the end is somewhat relevant, but you're mostly playing this for the early game to prevent them from searching, mainly. Next, I'm only playing 2 Dragonsong Flutes. Most people are playing 3. It's deceptive because you want to play a lot of 1-drops for the early game, but this technically isn't really a 1-drop, it's a 4-drop to get its fanfare effect off. In the early games, when you see this card, it is never helpful because it only gets its effect while in Overflow, or if you're spending 4 mana. So, yeah, I don't consider this to be a 1-drop, and because I don't need to open it, and I don't really want to see it ever in multiples, I believe playing only 2 is valid because you only ever want to see 1. And this deck has enough draw and discard power to be able to see 1. The discard effect is cute, but I don't think it wins enough games to justify, again, playing it at 3. Next, I'm playing 3 Trail of Light. Just helps with your discard effects. Instead of making them 1-for-1s or -1s, just inherent pluses. Would play more if I could. Triple Dragon Tamer. This also helps cycle through the deck, gets to the cards you want to see. Helps with the discard effects of Trail of Light and Flute. Mainly you're just using this to dig through your deck because Dragon doesn't really have a lot of cards that you really want to see. So you'd rather play cards that just help you draw more cards, really. Next, we're playing the other reason to play Dragon, which is Dragon Oracle. Just having more mana than your opponent is really great. And this is the reason why, this card's the reason why I also believe that Dragon players should be going second rather than first. Going first in this metagame is relevant for most decks, but you want to win a lot of your exchanges as Dragon against specifically the Sword matchup. Your Evo points that you get from going second allow you to evolve your Dragon Warrior earlier on, which is really good against the Sword matchup, especially if they search for Floral Fencer out. And it also makes your Blazing Breaths more live when you're going second, because it helps against the Maid Leader, it helps against the Prison Priestess, because typically they'll have to play it if they're going first, because they don't really have that many other 1-drop cards, Sword being the exception because they also have Quick Blader, but 1 damage is not really ever going to matter in this matchup. And just ramping, going second means you then have the amount of mana as if you're going first, but you also have the Evo point, so your ceiling goes even further above, which is always preferred. Next is the premium 2-for-1, which is Dragon Warrior. Play 3 copies because you always want to see it. You want to go see it early, you want to see it in the mid game. You could even argue you want to see it at the end of the game as well. It's a free drop with a 1-drop for Evolve, because everyone's going first and I'm always picking second. I always typically have the Evo points. So really it's just a free drop that deals 7 damage on its own, which is insane value.
That is quite insane, far out.
Yeah. Next is the other reason to be playing this deck, which is free Dragonmancer's Rights. I know it's a little bit weird that I'm playing 2 of the other amulet, but 3 of this amulet. But this one, the +1 heal is nice, but the fact that it can discard upon you playing it to trigger its own burn effect. This is how Dragon wins against Haven primarily. It doesn't really do, the ramping doesn't really do much against Haven because the main issue is Aegis with Wood. So you want to either kill them before they get to the Aegis, or make it so that the Aegis doesn't matter, because even though it has Ward, it can't prevent just burning the opponent's leader for 2 damage every time you activate it. This deck also has enough discard outlets without the flute. Like obviously the flute is 2 more discard outlets. All 3 of these copies, the more you play, the more discard outlets you have, the more total burn you're doing. If I see 3 of this in a game, I'll play all 3 and just have very limited board space, because dealing 6 damage per turn is insane. The Dragon Tamer is obviously a nice nice discard outlet. Discarding for hand size triggers it as well. Yeah, it's the main way you're beating Haven. Against Sword, you're not really using this to burn too much. You're mainly using this to clear the board, clearing their knight tokens or cleaning off anything that's already been damaged. Next we're playing 2 Serpent Wrath. It's a card that you definitely want to see, but not early game. You want to see it when you're in overflow. A free drop for 5 damage is always nice and quick, but because you are trying to effectively outpace Sword or deal with Sword, or because Haven really has the Aegis, which doesn't help too much, you mainly want to use this as a way to remove a problem and then draw the card as well. So sometimes you do have to play before you get into overflow, which is why I'm not playing it at free. I believe there's other better forms of removal, such as Blazing Breath or Dragon Warrior, which also leaves a body on the board. But the fact that this also draws you a card and helps cycle is it's what Dragon needs, because Dragon inherently doesn't have any searching capabilities. Next, we're only playing 1 Path to Purgatory. Draws 3 cards, helps in hands where you're discarding too quickly and you need to replenish, or it helps just see more of your deck. I'm not playing multiple copies because I never want to see the second one. You only ever want to see 1 or 0 even. Against the Sword matchup, if your hand's a little bit weird, you never want to activate it because it's just putting you closer to death. Against a Haven matchup, pretty much the same thing. You want to be able to heal enough health to outlive through maybe 1 or 2 attacks that Aegis can bring. This is counterintuitive. It's only really good at the start, and you only ever want to see 1 of it, so there's no point playing multiples. Next is the other Haven killer, which is triple Dark Dragoon Fortes. Guaranteed 7 damage on Evolve, unless someone's playing triple Angelic Barrage, which I think the only deck playing that is Rune, which isn't meta relevant at the moment, so there's no point really considering against it. Haven can't deal with this, so it's a guaranteed 7 damage. Sword can't deal with this, a guaranteed 7 damage. There's no reason to play less than 3. Next, we're playing Double Execution. It's important to respect the Leonidas' resolve. This is the only relevant way that Dragon can deal with amulets. Haven's amulets that we're currently playing, you never really want to execute those. There's no point. You typically want to save it for their John or their Casual Priestess or whatever larger drops they have. It's very rare for you to activate Execution against an amulet for Haven. Against Dragon, you typically want to get rid of their rights to prevent the burn damage, because that's typically how the mirror is fought against, is who sees the burn card first. But against Sword, you are always holding this for the Leonidas' Resolve. There's not many other cards you want to hold it for. Next, we're playing 2 Erd. Not playing the third one because it basically takes the spot of Execution, so it's really just 4 cards to play against the Leonidas' Resolve. The reason why I'm playing 2 and 2 is because I would actually like to see one of each or both of them in my hand. I don't want to see 2 in my hand and 2 of these in my hand. I'd rather even out the odds on opening both types or just one. Erd is preferred over the Execution in the Haven matchup. Being able to bounce back large things while leaving a body on the board for Haven to deal with means that typically they have to waste removal on it. And for the Haven matchup, you want to force them to go for as much removal as possible so that your large swings and pushes are uninterrupted. Against Sword, again, it's really good against Leonidas if they just leave it standing instead of being able to destroy it for turn they summon it. Basically when they just play it and leave it standing, Erd means they've wasted a full turn, which is obviously always great. But it even has some other applications against Sword. Against Floral Fencer, it's amazing because it's a 2-for-1. If they're comboing off with Amelia, it's amazing because typically it's a 2-for-1 as well. But yeah, I really do enjoy Erd. Next is Triple Shenlong, which will shortly become limited, unfortunately. Shenlong just draws 1 and discards a card. Its health value is also very nice for the mirror because Conflag or Fafnir can't out it once it evolves. For 6, it's also really good against Haven if we're playing the Kaguya version, which I believe most Haven builds are, because again on Evo it has 6 health instead of 5, which means it can kill a Kaguya but still live. And it's always good to have a ward, even though it'll be a 4-1, a 5-1 at that point, ward's a ward. And the fact that it triggers over discard, it heals 5 on evolve, it just does too much to not play it free. Next I'm playing the 1 Conflag. Conflag is a card that you want to play because theoretically it's necessary against Abyss and it's necessary against Sword. But it's garbage like 7 times out of 10. Most of the time you are just mulliganing it away if you open it, or most of the time you're just discarding it in favor of other cards. But the times where it's good, it's really good and necessary, which is the same logic why I'm only playing 1 Fafnir. Basically the same thing as Conflag, but leaves a body on the board as well. But again, it's only situationally good. Most decks now don't really leave large boards other than Abyss. Sword typically is just powering into Leonidas' Resolve, making their storms do more, and then if you're out for a board, they just summon more storms anyway, so it makes no difference. It's typically about outing the Leonidas' Resolve. But again, like Conflagration is a card that when it's good, it's really good, and it's how I actually won first places. Being able to Fafnir away Otohime's bodyguards and just clearing the board is obviously always preferred. But 1 of each, because really you only want to see 1 or the other. You never need to see both. So it's always nice to be able to mulligan 1 away without being worried that you're out of board clears. The other power 1 of is Genesis Dragon. It deals 10 damage. That's pretty much all it's for. Against Sword, they can't really deal with it very well. If you've outed their Resolve, their Leonidas' Resolve, there is no reason not to Genesis Dragon. Typically, they have to deal with it at that point. They can't just kill you unless your health total is low enough, but hopefully with the Shenlongs you've gone through, it's high enough. And then the other power 1 of is Baha. It clears the board, it outs Leonidas. It outs a standing Leonidas or it just outs for Resolve. A 9-9 or an on evolve and 11-11 is just too big for most decks to deal with, especially if you are lucky enough to ramp quite hard. With these 3 1-ofs, or I guess 4 1-ofs, you don't really want to play multiples of each of these. You can justify playing maybe 2 Genesis Dragon or 2 Bahamut's, but really 1 should be enough to hopefully close off a game, especially if you are ramping. These should be mainly your finishes. They shouldn't be just cards you play for no reason. Next is the Evolve deck. We're playing one Bell Ringer. Normally you want to go through this as quickly as possible just to out something small and insignificant. It will never come up at the end of a game, so just use it. And you will never go for more than one anyways, unless you're really bricked. Next is one Dragon Tamer. I'd like to play two, but there's no room in the Evo deck whatsoever. If they could raise it to 15, that would be great. We have the Dragon Tamer. The only real purpose of the Evolve is if you need to out something the turn you summon it, because obviously Evolve followers will have Rush inherently, or to recycle Shenlong or Dragon Warrior. Haven't really needed to recycle Dragon Warrior, though theoretically it's very, very nice. But recycling Shenlong just to draw more in discard. Again, in the final match that I had, I used Dragon Tamer to recycle the Shenlong. I only managed to have 2 copies of Shenlong throughout that game, but having 3 copies, just being able to cycle one and not needing to draw it, is obviously quite valuable. It also discards a card which triggers your Trail of Light or your Dragonmancer Rites. Next, we're playing double Dragon Warrior. It's just premium removal. You shouldn't have to go for 3 of them, so there's no reason to play 3, because that insinuates you're opening 3 of a non-searchable card, because there is no searchable cards in Dragon. But yeah, it's the premium 2 for 1, or it does 7 damage, which no one was playing it, but theoretically it's a 1 card out to Lucifer. Next, we're playing one Erd. I'm playing 2 in the deck. Hope you find it, but only 1 in the Evo deck. Again, it's how you out Leonidas' Resolve, or if you see it too early, or if you need to clear board space. It helps with Floral Fencer, helps with Amelia, helps with just... It can either be a really powerful 1-for-1 or a really powerful 2-for-2. Even just opening an Erd and not evolving it, though, sometimes is valuable, because it just sets back a turn for the opponent, forces them to play the mana, especially if it doesn't have Storm or Rush. It's sometimes valuable to just force them to commit to the same board again. Again, the primary killer of the deck is Dark Dragoon Fortes. Just guaranteed 7 damage without needing to worry about anything. It's how you close off games, it's how you just win the middle game. Can be used as a removal as well if needed, but typically you just want to go face with it. Next is double Shenlong. The earlier builds of this deck, I was actually playing 3 in my Evo deck because of the Dragon Tamer being able to recycle Shenlong, but going for 3 of a very nice doesn't really make or break the difference against Sword, being able to heal 10 versus 15. If a game's going that long, then they should have Leonidas' Resolve up, and the difference between 5 extra health doesn't really matter. However, playing and going through both of the evolved Shenlongs against the Haven matchup specifically means that you can typically live through 2 Aegis attacks, which hopefully by then you're either killing it off or you are just burning them to death, closing off the game. It just gives you more time. And again, its stats very favorable because it's got more than 5 health. Lives through the Cargill, lives through Conflag, lives through Fafnir. Just lives through most annoying threats. And then just a 1 Baja to match for 1 Baja in the deck. And 11-11's too big for most decks to deal with, especially because most of the time you leave it standing, just threatening. Out for the entire board of both monsters and amulets. Obviously won't out the Aegis, but at that point it's all of Aegis' health, or if they've buffed it using Guardian Sun, it's the majority of Aegis' health, which typically is enough to deal with it. If you see the Baja and manage to evolve it against Sword and out for Leonidas' Resolve with it, if they don't have an answer to the Baja immediately, it doesn't really matter how large of a board they make, because you're playing so much forms of removal. You're playing the Blazing Breast, the Serpent's Wrath, the 1 Conflag, the 1 Fafnir. Even your amulets can be used as removal, although not at the start of the turn, but regardless. Typically, it's hard for them to out for Baja if they can't do it straight away, and then taking 11 of damage at this point of the game is normally enough to kill them. Again, in the finals, my evolved Baja managed to live for 3 turns, which was quite spectacular, because the first turn, obviously, I can't attack with it. it out of the board. The second turn, I also didn't attack with it because I couldn't deal with a board. Obviously, if this can't attack the enemy leader if it's moving 2 followers, and then the third turn, I just had the Fafnir. I'm like, okay, I can out the board now and then go for game. So that is the theory of playing these ratios, and yeah, obviously some of the ratios would change if the Evo deck was larger. I might play the third Dragon Song Flute if I could play a second Dragon Tamer Evo in the Evo deck, but it's just way too tight. You need to play all these cards at least these ratios, so that's just where it is.
Beautiful. So, did you have any shout-outs at all?
So I'd like to shout out the third place winner of this event, Henry Lee. He's the one that got me into this game. I've never heard of this game before, the actual physical card game. I'd like to shout out Lawrence Carrion, who hopefully will get his invite in the last chance qualifiers. He helped me test this deck the previous day of the event for the majority of the evening, stayed up until 2 a.m. doing that. For about 4 hours total, which was very nice of him. Yeah, that's really about it.
Well, if you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like, and while you're down there, why not subscribe and hit the notification bell so that when I upload another video, you will be notified. Hey, dogs out. See ya. Oh, hashtag never fail.